Hey guys, welcome to Shop Talk today. It's Monday, so start of a new week, huh? Hopefully everybody's having a good start to the week. I know I am. I just got through this weekend with a training course with Dave Spalding, Handgun Combatives. Took his kinetic combat pistol course. That was it was a lot of fun. It was a really good course, guys. So if you ever get the chance to train with Dave Spalding, I would highly recommend it. And you don't have too long to get on that because he's winding down as he looks forward to sort of retiring. So anyway, had a great weekend, and I'm a little bit pooped, but pretty tired. But it was well worth it. Hey David, what's up? Thanks for joining, and Tris and Mitch. Who else did I see pop up here? Oh, it was Tris that said howdy. Hey Tris. Tris had 9 kids in the house Saturday. That's awesome. Flashlights, yes, an underrated tool. Very handy tool. Especially if you have one the size of a baseball bat, like this old Maglite. I say old, it's got the LED in it. It's pretty bright, but it's still, is this a 3-cell? I think it's a 3-cell. Maybe it's a 4-cell. I think it's a 3-cell. Let's find out real quick while we give everybody a chance to hop in. Ben, checking my AR headspace while I watch this. Cool, man. Are you using like how are you checking that? Is that like a go, no-go gauge, or yeah. There's other methods too, of course. So this is a 3-cell, 3D-cell Maglite. I've had this thing for a number of years now. It rides around in my truck underneath the seat. So anyway, well, this is obviously the biggest one that I have here. So I have a selection of weapon-mounted lights and handheld flashlights. We're going to talk about some of these and what they are, some of the features, what to look for in a good light, pros and cons of certain lights, etc., etc. David asks if anyone else carries a Fenix flashlight for EDC. David, I have carried a couple of Fenix lights for a while, actually. This is one I've had for years, so it shows a little bit of wear and tear. This is the Fenix LD22. I don't even think they make this particular one anymore. It's a good light, though. It's 2 AA batteries, which that was one of the things that attracted me to it, because those are a lot cheaper to replace than CR123s or CR2s. So anyway, all right, yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about different batteries, battery types. That's actually one of the things about some pros and cons that we're going to be discussing here today. Hey Matthew, thanks for joining. Nice. Tris carries a Streamlight everywhere he goes. Guys, comment in the comments what flashlights you carry, which ones you like or prefer. I'd love to hear from you. And Matthew says he loves 18650s. I do too, as long as they work. I like them. So you know. All right. So let's talk about batteries. Let's start by talking about batteries with flashlights. So, but real quick, I'll kind of give you the rundown of what I have here. I have here a Streamlight MicroStream. This is the standard MicroStream model. It's like 60 lumens, maybe. Does it say on here? 45 lumens. That's not that much. It's actually less than what I thought. So this is a Streamlight MicroStream. 1 AAA battery. That's cool because that's also very cheap to use and replace. But then again, 1 AAA battery, that's only 1.5 volts. You're not going to get a lot of juice out of that. But anyway, that's the MicroStream. I've got the Fenix LD22 I mentioned here, 2 AA batteries. Good light. I think this one's about 200 lumens, maybe a little bit less. I can't remember. It's been a few years since I bought it. I don't have the packaging for it, so I don't remember what the specs were. I have here the Streamlight ProTac 2LX. A little bit bigger light than some of these others here. You can see it's fatter. A little bit shorter than the LD22. The LD22 is a pretty long light, and that's one of the things about it. I've carried it a lot, and I do like that the clip is reversible, so you can have it beam facing up or switch facing up, either or. I find that I liked having that switch facing up because it's shorter distance here, so there was less of this sticking above my pocket. So that was kind of why I went the way I did with that. We'll talk about that too, as far as orientation of clips and stuff, especially where they are reversible or whatnot. Shayna's had good luck with her stream lights. TLR7 on your Ruger, yeah. Matthew carries a Streamlight, has a bunch of lights all around his house, has a Surefire X300 as well. It's a weapon mounted light. I do not have any Surefire weapon mounted lights. I do not have an X300, but I do have this Olight PL2 Valkyrie, and they just released the PL2 Pro, which is basically the same light as far as the form factor is very similar, and the brightness I think it's actually brighter than this one, but these are both they're very bright lights. The PL2 Pro or PL Pro, maybe they should call it the PL Pro, I can't remember now, but they've got a magnetic recharging dock, whatever thing on the bottom of the light. That's kind of cool. This runs on two CR123s, so, but anyway, we'll get into the weapon mounted lights. But that one's, I held this one up because this one's going to be similar in size and performance to an X300. Probably not as durable though, because almost nothing beats an X300 in terms of durability. So ProTac 2LX from Streamlight here. I have here the TacWare TW350, right? We stock both of these lights, the Streamlight MicroStream and the TacWare TW350. This is a nice short profile, but it's a little bit fat, okay? We'll talk about that. And while I'm thinking about it, I didn't mean to, I skipped over this one. I actually just recently acquired this. This is a Surefire Tactician, or E2T. And I'll tell you, I really, really, really like this light. It is freaking built like a tank. It's a great light. Very bright too. 800 lumens here from the Tactician. Anyway, so I've been very impressed with a number of these lights. We'll talk about switches, different switch configurations. We'll talk about strobe and all that too. I'm pulling out a CR123 battery here. Then, of course, I already talked about the mag light, which runs off of 3 D cells. Got the PL2 Valkyrie. Okay, talked about that. That runs on 2 CR123As. TLR1 Streamlight. This is a classic light. It's a very serviceable light. It's been around a number of years now and has proven to be quite good and quite durable. Not as bright as the X300, and probably again not quite as durable as the X300 from Surefire, but these have proven themselves again and again and again still. So they're a decent light. Right here I have a TLR7. Okay, little tiny guy. It's pretty cool as far as really bright but compact weapon mounted lights, but has some downsides to it as well. And that runs off of 1 CR123. And then I have this old tank of a light here. I shouldn't really say tank. I don't know that they're really that robust, but this is the old Glock light. I don't even know what the model number of these are. I just have always called it the Glock weapon mounted light. This is the only light I think I own anymore that uses a halogen bulb. So you see that yellowness, right? Compare that to like the TLR1, right? Yeah, so that's a halogen bulb, which means it's not going to be as bright. It's not going to last as long battery life. It's not as efficient in using the batteries. Its beam is not quite as clean. You know, the flood is not quite as good as on some of these other lights. It's got a decent beam, and I'll tell you, it gets the job done. And these have been around for a long time, and I can't remember where I came across this one, but I don't know, I just hang on to it because I like, it almost feels vintage in a way, because you could tell just looking at it, it looks old. But anyway, cool old light from Glock there. Let's see, what else you guys saying? Let's see. Steven has a TLR1 HL, which is TLR1 but on steroids, which is great. It's a great light. The PL2 Mini, Though I don't have one of those, but I wouldn't mind getting one, at least if anything to play with and try and test. They look like a really, really cool light for a very compact size. Matthew confirms, yes, the PL Pro is 1500 lumens. The PL2 Valkyrie is 1200, I think. Is that right? It's freaking bright. I'll tell you what, as soon as you get up over 500, everything just seems bright to me at that point. Let's see. For weapon mounted Olight or Crimson Trace, that's a weird comparison, I'll be honest. Why? Because Crimson Trace is still kind of new to that market. And Olight, I don't know. The Olights seem like they're pretty good lights. The locking mechanism is pretty cool and pretty clever, which is that's pretty cool. I mean, they're easy to take on and take off, and they've got plenty of clamping force, so that's great. I don't have a ton of experience with them as far as like I haven't had one on a gun and shot a ton of rounds, and you know I've heard from some people that they don't think they're good enough. They're not quite ready for prime time as far as long-term durability. I've heard others say that just the opposite. So, I mean, obviously they're Chinese made, and you know, there's some things about them I like, and there's some things I don't like about them necessarily. But actually, one of those is the switch on the PL2 here. I'm not as crazy about having to push my finger in or push forward or anything like that. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit I'm rather biased. I actually really like the toggle switch that exists on the Streamlight TLR1. Probably some of that's because this is what I have the most time with, and I've used this the most. But part of the reason I've used it the most is because when I first shopped for my first weapon mounted light, this is the first one I bought, I looked at the Surefires. I shot with the Surefires a couple of times. I borrowed a friend's and tried it out. And I just find that I feel more comfortable working this little toggle with my support hand, or hitting that with my trigger finger if I'm shooting one-handed and locking the light on and then going to the trigger. To me, it's easier and more intuitive, even in some cases, than some of these other lights. The O lights work on the principle of if you just quickly click the button, it's going to stay on. If you press and hold it for like, I don't know, maybe a half a second, maybe a second, then it turns on and turns off as soon as you release the button. That's fairly intuitive, I guess, but I don't know. I guess I'm just old school and I like that little toggle of the Streamlight. And honestly, I've had this Glock one forever and ever, and it has kind of a little toggle as well. You can see that there. And you would just kind of push down about halfway to turn it on momentarily. And if you wanted to lock it on, you just push it down until it clicked. And I guess I always felt like the Streamlight, was similar in that regard. But Streamlight is momentary all the time if you're pressing down with your support hand thumb. If you want it on permanently, you just flick it up with your support hand thumb. If you're trying to shoot one-handed with it, you really only have one option, because you're not going to want to momentarily turn it on and then have it go off as soon as you go to the trigger. You're just going to swipe that down and turn it on. It's pretty hard to beat, I think, in terms of activation on that. But that's just me. There are other people that disagree. Since I'm talking about activation and switches and things, let's go to the Streamlight TLR7. And then I'll come back to batteries, I guess. So this guy here is pretty cool, right? Because it's super small. And this was really designed to work well with and aesthetically look better and work better, like with holsters and things, with like a mid-sized compact gun. So you can see it's shorter than the barrel on a Glock 17 sized gun, right? So it works really nicely on a Glock 19. I don't even know. Oh, I do have a Glock 19. All right, guys. All right, so there's my Glock 19. So I'll just show you what that looks like real quick. Of course, I'm not tightening this down all the way, but so you can see it's a nice profile where that light ends basically flush with the bottom or the end of the muzzle of the gun. That's really cool. and it's really bright. They did a really good job with this light, getting, I don't remember how many lumens, but it's a good number. It's enough. It's enough to get the job done for sure. And it's a decent beam. You get a good center beam. If I held it over here, you'd see that's a pretty nice beam. What you don't see is there's also a nice balance of flood too. We'll talk about beams and floods and so forth. But anyway, TLR7, pretty cool light. But I'll tell you what, if you have short fingers or stubby thumbs, and I kind of do, I have to break my grip a little bit so I can consistently, and by break I mean I have to slide this hand just slightly forward so I can consistently hit and activate that light. And I'll tell you, that little button is kind of small. And for some people, actually a lot of people just don't seem to like the activation on the TLR7. I think it's acceptable for what it is as far as a very, very compact light, but I do think they probably could have maybe designed that just a little bit differently. I don't know, maybe even had just like an extended wing or tab for it. That would probably make sense. In fact, you can see, this would be a good comparison. You see how the buttons, I mean, they don't go past the front of the trigger guard, because they don't. And just to kind of give you a sense of why that's harder to reach than, say, like a TLR1, well, you see those little button tabs, they extend almost to be even with the inside of the trigger guard. So that's already very much, it's a lot closer to my support hand thumb, and I can reach it easily with my trigger finger for that constant on. See that? So that's something to consider. If you're looking at weapon mounted light, it's something to consider as far as some of the designs of these and whether you can reach them and activate them reliably with your thumbs and fingers. Kind of critical, right? But I think the TLR7 is going to prove itself as far as being, I think it seems like a pretty robust unit, and seems like it's well made. The bonus there is that if you're using one of these with a holster, well, on all these other ones, particularly with like a good mid-sized compact gun like a Glock 19, and you want to have a holster for it and carry it inside a waistband or appendix, well, you got this light that goes way beyond the muzzle, so the holster ends up having to be a lot bigger and longer. Now, that actually can have some benefits too, by the way, but I'm not going to go into that. But for a lot of people, that kind of bothers them a little bit. All right, let's get back to batteries before I get distracted again. There's just so much here, and there's so much we could talk about. It's easy to get distracted. Hey, Alfonso, I'm glad you joined. I saw your message on Facebook. I'll get back to you, Alfonso, here very soon. Let's see, TLR7. Oh, yeah, that's right. I already read that one. Yep, okay. Lux PTO IP. What? I don't even know what the heck that is, Gary. Sorry, man. Florida here. PL Pro. 2 headlamps. Headlamps are great to have. Maybe not so much a tactical thing, right? But they're just really handy. Streamlight you keep by your bed. Surefire for EDC. That's awesome, Ben. PD35 TAC. That's a good light, okay? Again, that's another Fenix light, and I think I have one of those as well. It's mounted on one of my carbines. It's a solid light. Olight has some nice handhelds. They do. I don't have any of them yet. Glock 26. I had a Glock 26. Like to get a light for it. On a Glock 26, so the Glock 26s, I don't even think have a rail. Am I right in that? Do I remember that correctly? I'm not even sure if they have the rail on the Glock 26s. So you got to look probably to like Crimson Trace or Streamlight might make, so some of these companies make like special aftermarket adapter or custom, fit lights that, for specific gun models. Like a Glock 43 doesn't have a rail. I know that for a fact. Let me think. Glock 26. Man, for some reason I feel like that doesn't have a rail. I could be wrong though. I don't know. I haven't spent a while. It's been a while since I paid attention to what a Glock 26 looks like. Let's see. PL Pro. Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully get my hands on one and try it out. Let's see. Hey, Cammy, what's up? Night Core P36, 2,000 lumens intrigued me. Any experience with that one? No. Sounds like it's got a lot of lumens. P10C. Still like having a flashlight offhand. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. What light would you recommend for my P320? Well, in fact, I have a P320. right here. Sort of. Actually, I recently ordered and got in. I just got in on the other day the X Compact grip module, and then I've thrown my standard P320 compact or carry. It's the same length slide, whether it's a compact or carry model, and I like the look of that. I like how that slide just extends slightly beyond the grip module of the new X Compact grip, and this thing feels really awesome in the hand. I really like the X Compact grip module. So I decided I was not going to order a new fancy X Compact. I've already got all kinds of 320 stuff, and they're modular. So as soon as I could get my hands on ordering an X Compact grip, I did that. All right, so Alfonso, you're wondering about the P320. Chances are you have a compact length slide or frame or whatever. And so you can see how a TLR7 fits on there, very similar to a 19. It looks nice and proportional and aesthetically pleasing, right? So if that's something you're into, if you don't want to have a holster that's overly long for the gun and the light, the TLR7 honestly is probably the way to go, all right? Yes, you could talk about like the Olight PL2 Mini. Well, what about that one, Riley? Well, the problem is there's just not that many holsters available for some of those Olight lights. Streamlight and Surefire have much more market share, and the holster companies are a lot quicker at adapting and making new models for these. So if you're looking something that would be about the length of the end of your gun, then you got to go with the TLR7 or TLR8. The only difference between TLR7 and the 8 is the 8's got a laser as well incorporated into it, and the 7 is just a light. I don't own anything that has lasers and lights. It's just, I don't know. I don't really put lasers on my guns anyway. So anyway, all right, so that's the TLR7. You want to see what the TLR1 looks like? Throw this on as well. Now, interestingly, and I'm just discovering this because this is the first time I'm putting a TLR1 on an X Compact frame. It's kind of a short frame, and the locking lug on the TLR1 is actually in front, like it's not sitting in any of the Picatinny rail grooves, which is not, you can see this will actually slide right off now. I could tighten it down, but it would probably slide off during recoil. So TLR7 is not going to work on the X Compact, but it does work, or excuse me, the TLR1 does work on the standard P320s, your compact and carry and full-size models. That's without a question. This new X Compact frame is a little bit shorter, which I think was kind of weird. I don't know why they had to make it. They had to make the X Compact just a little bit shorter on the barrel. I don't know why. It's not like it's that much different, you know. You can see the difference right there. It's like nothing. Apparently, if you make the grip a little shorter, you gotta make the barrel shorter too. I don't know. I never really understood that. Anyway, TLR1. So that's not an option for the X Compact, but it would still work on P320 just fine. This is the Olight PL2 Valkyrie, and again, the locking lug is in front of the grip module. So but it would work on standard P320. Okay. So this gives you a sense, though, as far as length and what that would look like. All right. So kind of just depends on what you want. I mean, dude, like I'll be honest, I would probably, until I feel like Olight has more street cred, I would probably stick with a Surefire or a Streamlight. Almost any of the models from any of those two companies, you probably can't go wrong, Alfonso, as far as a weapon mounted light. Okay. All right, so back to batteries. I got distracted again. This is a CR123A is the full name, and these are relatively small. They are high, they're high voltage. This is 3 volts right here. So if you run 2 of these in a light, you're getting 6 volts. That's a lot of volts for a light, for a little LED light especially. That's how guys like this PL2 are getting 1200 lumens out of them, because you got 6 volts. That's a lot. Even this Maglite doesn't have 6 volts. This has got 4.5, which is a lot. Okay, but it takes 3 big D-cell batteries to accomplish that. So CR123s are awesome. They have some great advantages because there's a lot higher voltage. So just 2 batteries, 6 volts, 1 battery, 3 volts. 1 battery is as much as 2 of these AAAs or 2 AA's. So that's how, like, this TW350 runs off of CR123. And, you know, it's a 300 lumen light. It's pretty decent, fairly short. And it's able to be short, and it's able to be really bright because it is running off of a 3-volt battery. That's really key. All right, but the downside of these guys, expensive, okay? My recommendation would be to go on Amazon. You might find some other online sources and order these things in bulk. If you have flashlights that run off of CR123s, order them in bulk. Order them in packs like 20 or something, you know, like whatever you see that's available. Ordering them 2 at a time is very painful. Even 4 or 6 at a time seems to still be kind of expensive, where you're typically paying a couple of bucks per battery. But if you order like 20 at a time, 30 at a time, I've seen some different deals here and there online, and Amazon's a pretty good place to start. Then you can typically get them for a lot closer to like $1 a piece. That's a lot more manageable, okay? Now, it's not like these don't last a long time. I mean, this Tactician is a 800 lumen light that at high power will run for an hour and a half off of these two batteries. That's actually pretty dang impressive. An hour and a half at 800 lumens. That's a long time. Whether you think it is or not, I mean, that is actually a really long time. If you're using this, you know, for 2-3 minutes a day, it's gonna take you a while to go through an hour and a half of battery life. All right. Okay, so, but those batteries are expensive. So I've always been akin to the lights that use a AA or AAA. Now, typically though, you don't get as good of performance from a AA or AAA powered light because, again, you're only running at 1.5, and such as in the case of the Streamlight MicroStream. It's 1.5 volts powering this little guy. That's why it only gets 45 lumens. Okay, or in the case of this LD22 Phoenix, 2 AA batteries, 3 volts. So it takes those two, and it takes that size to get the same level of performance of one battery that's in this guy, and still this isn't as bright as this. So that's the downside. Now, this still is like 200 lumens, all right? So let's talk about lumens just a little bit. Because obviously you probably get the points that I'm making as far as batteries, and there's cost-effective batteries, but there's lesser performance. There's more expensive batteries, you get more performance. It's kind of what you're after. Let's talk about rechargeable batteries. Sorry, I'll come back to lumens. I'm jumping all over the place here. Rechargeable batteries. One of these has a rechargeable in it. I think it's this 2LX. Let's pop the cap off. I believe this one's running an 18650. There we go, 18650. Okay, right there. That is a big rechargeable battery. It is kind of like the equivalent of 2 CR123s. Kind of. I say kind of. Kind of because it's similar in length. See that? As 2 of these CR123s. Similar in diameter. These ones are actually, the CR123s are actually a little bit narrower. So there are some lights that are designed to run off of 2 of these that will also accept an 18650. But as like in the case of this Tactician, what I appreciate about the Tactician is that they didn't make this any fatter than it needed to be. Okay, and what I mean by that is both this Streamlight Pro Tac 2LX and this Tactician run off of 2 CR123s. Same power, bank. Two batteries, 2 3-volt batteries, 6 volts. Okay, they're both really. I think this one's also an 800 lumen light. I think this one's 800 lumens. So they're both very bright. The performance is great, but you see that the Streamlight here is a lot fatter, and it actually kind of makes me not want to carry it because it's kind of fat in the pocket. It takes up more space in the pocket. I feel it. I feel it's the bulk of it in my pocket more than this Tactician. Well, the reason why the 2LX is a little bit fatter is because these rechargeable 18650s are a little bit fatter than a CR123. So they designed this specifically to be able to accept one of these 18650s. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't make rechargeable batteries that will almost perfectly replace the CR123s. There's, I think, what's the 16650. Which is the same diameter and length as 2 of these CR123s. Now, I said it's kind of like replacing 2 of these with 1 of these, but it's not. It's not an equal playing field because this is only 3.7 volts. This is 6 volts. So you're going to usually get a little bit less intensity in terms of the brightness of the light. Sometimes the run times will change. And probably if you're operating at a lower voltage, you probably are going to get a longer run time. And again, because the light's not going to be as bright. All right. You're probably still going to get, I mean, even out of this Streamlight ProTac, it's supposed to be, I think, about an 800 lumen light with the 2 CR123s. With the rechargeable 18650 that's operating at 2.3 volts less, it's still getting, I don't know, it's still getting a lot of brightness. You can see here, it's a pretty good beam. All right, so the performance is fine. Some flashlights just won't even run with volts under a certain level. So this one's designed to be able to work at that 3.7 volt level. It's also designed to work at 6 volts. Some lights won't run under the 6 volts that's required from these 2 CR123s. All right, so a couple things to note there. All right, so I was doing some reading and like I kind of got the impression on the Tactician, the Surefire Tactician, that there's not really a rechargeable option, at least a 16650 or 18650 won't even fit. And I think the 16650s, you have to do some sort of like modification to the light to make it run on the lower voltage and still get good performance. So it's something good to know. Now, I have seen, like Fenix, for instance, makes some CR123 sized batteries that have a built-in micro USB charging port, and they're circuit protected, meaning they shouldn't catch on fire or anything when you're running them for a long time or charging them and stuff like that. So that's good. And so they're actually rechargeable CR123 sized batteries from companies like Fenix. You'd have to charge those 2 batteries individually, but then they should work inside this. And you should get, I don't remember what the voltage is of those, but I think that you'll get enough voltage to run a light like this. Anyway, so, all right, we've got, again, double A sized batteries and lights, decent performance, about 200 lumens. We've got little tiny lights like the MicroStream, 45 lumens, running off of a AAA. Then we've got lights like, you can get this battery plugged back in. There we go. But you can see it's still, fairly bright. Like if you shine that right into your eye, you're not going to like it very much. Maybe not from 30 feet away, but I actually did run through a low light shooting course, just like an evening low light course that I did at a local range, and I did the whole course with this Streamlight MicroStream, just to see, okay, in the dark, can I see and identify my targets well enough and put accurate hits on them? And you know what? Yeah, you can get the job done. That's why I'm not the biggest advocate about having all the lumens in the world. I just think that lumens are overrated. Also, the measurement of lumens is constantly up to debate and is constantly different. Every company measures their lights differently. There's not, like, lumen supposed to have a certain definition, but it's kind of subjective how that can be measured sometimes, especially without super expensive high-tech equipment. So you got to take it with a grain of salt anyway. When somebody says this is so many lumens, it might be, it might not be. It might be less, it might be more compared to another light that says it's the same number of lumens. I don't get too caught up in, whoa, this one's actually only 600 lumens and that one's 800, and that means that one's way better, okay? Because I'll tell you what, 600 lumens in a low light environment is enough to it's more than enough to get the job done. All right? I know there's guys out there that disagree with me. I've been in some of the forums, and the guys say, no, you want as much light. You want all the light, all the lumens. And I've been through a number of low light shooting classes and scenarios, and I just don't buy that, all right? So some guys will say it's a bunch of BS, that you'll blind yourself in low light environments with a really bright light. I think you can actually negatively affect your vision with really, really bright lights. I really do, because I've experienced it. All right, so sometimes it's something that'll be unexpected. Like maybe not necessarily that you're standing in a white walled hallway pointing your light down the hallway, but maybe you accidentally come around a corner and you hit a wall right in front of you that's white or just reflective, or a mirror or something, and boom, you bounce that light right back into your eye, and you're going to be seeing white in the eyes for a moment. So you're really killing your low light vision. Your eyes adjust to low light very well, but they take time to adjust. So anyway, I'm not going to say, hey, the 1200 lumens of something like this or 1500 lumens of the PL Pro isn't like, I'm not going to trash talk that, but at the same time, like, I can get the job done with this little 45 lumen Streamlight MicroStream. It's not ideal. I much prefer to have this guy, but sometimes if this is all you have, that's what you have. I've pocket carried a MicroStream for a long time. These are great little lights, very utilitarian. They're super handy and they're super small, so they're really easy to carry. You won't even notice it's there. I love the MicroStream. Still carry it from time to time today. All right, it kind of depends on what I'm wearing, how I'm dressed, where I'm going, sort of thing. I've never really liked carrying this ProTac 2LX because it's kind of fat to me. I just haven't ever put it in a pocket that I went, oh, that, you know, like I always know it's there. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's more bulky than I think it needs to be. Same is true of the TW350. Good lights, maybe not as ideal for pocket carry. So I like the form factor of this new Tactician I picked up because it's a little bit slimmer and doesn't seem to be as obnoxious in the pocket. Okay. Again, that's not to knock on these other lights and their performance. 800 lumens, 300 lumens, 800 lumens, 200 lumens, 45 lumens. Know your equipment and know how to use it effectively. All right. So I guess that's what I would say. I have no idea what the lumen rating is on the mag light, but it's pretty bright. It's good enough. All right. Over here, the TLR7, pretty bright. It's like, it might be 800 lumens. I can't remember the exact number. It's quite a few. I think the halogen light in this Glock light is actually considered a 60 lumen light. It seems brighter than that to me when I'm in a low light environment. Of course, they used to rate things with candelas in the old incandescent days as well. So I don't know. Candelas versus lumens. I saw a comment about that. Who cares? Is the light bright enough to get the job done? That's what's important. And do you understand how to use the light in the conditions that you're in? Do you understand, too, there are some limitations. It is going to be more difficult for me to see clearly an object that's in somebody's hands with a light like this than with a light like this, okay? And so we need to understand that, the limitations thereof, and that I'm going to need to maybe take a little bit more time to evaluate a circumstance, or, you know, maybe get even a little bit closer, or just pay a little bit better attention. Now today I'm not going to talk about techniques for using the lights because of time. That's kind of for another day. But I do want to talk about weapon mounted versus handheld. And this is what I would say. I saw, and I think someone already made the comment kind of like this, and it's absolutely true. If you've got a weapon mounted light, it does not replace the need for having a handheld light, right? You can have a handheld light and not have a weapon mounted light. But you can't go the other, it's not true the other way around. You can't have a weapon mounted light and not have one of these. You just can't. Reason why is you throw one of these bad boys on your weapon. All right. This is your home defense weapon. Something's going on at night in your house. For whatever reason, you feel the need to at least take a look, to investigate. Or maybe you're just holed up in your bedroom and you're waiting for someone to come through the door. All right. Wherever, if this is the only light you have no, okay, you do have one option, but it's not the ideal option. You really don't have an option to light somebody up with this. You can see how bright that PL2 is. That sucker is bright. Wherever this light points is where your gun points. That's not ideal for a civilian. All right? It's not even ideal sometimes for cops. That's why every cop, if they carry a weapon mounted light, they absolutely carry one of these too. And they guarantee you they're using this a lot more than they're using this. There are a lot of situations, and I've been there, I've done that. I had to go into a house and search around, and I was not doing it with this. I was doing it with this. At the same time, you're ready to go to town. If you got to pull this guy out, you know, you need to be familiar with shooting with a light in your hand as well as with a weapon mounted light if you carry a weapon mounted light. You need to be familiar with how to search and do all sorts of things safely which really involves using this. Okay? And the same is true even if you're using some kind of handheld flashlight technique with the handgun, like the Harry's technique that I'm showing you here. You need to be careful that you don't just go around searching like this all the time, right? You got to learn that there's times where it's appropriate. Make sure this is muzzled in a safe direction, and you're using the handheld light to search. And then if there's a need to present and shoot, that you know how to lock that back up without muzzling, you know, because that's the one danger of the Harry's technique, is accidentally sweeping the hand with the muzzle. All right, but you need to be able to get back into that locked up position, right, where the light indexes well with where the gun's pointing, and do that quickly. Or maybe you go to a different technique, like a neck index or even a chest index or FBI technique, whatever. So you need to be familiar with different techniques with a handheld light. This is your best friend in a low light situation. All right, not this guy. This is convenience, is what this is. This is for convenience. This is for those times where it's like, oh, I need to use my gun right now, and I'm pretty sure that's a threat. I'm going to light him up with my light, confirm, and I'm pressing the trigger. I'll be honest, I think way too many civilians are probably carrying weapon-mounted lights and don't really need them. Okay? Home defense weapon, I think, makes a little bit more sense, as long as you understand how it's used appropriately, and as long as you still have one of these. But out on the streets, I think there's probably way too many civilians carrying these that don't know how to use them or don't know when, and you know they're going to come into play. So, yeah. Anyway, so make sure you have a good flashlight, good quality flashlight. This week only, guys. 15% off of any lights we sell on our site, actually. Any lights. I know that we have more than the TW350 and the MicroStream. I know we have more than just those two. That's what I have here, though, and that's what I pulled off the stock shelves here. So we got the MicroStream. Really not that expensive a light anyway. It's like 20 bucks. You'll get another 15% off by using the coupon code ShopTalk. Here's the TW350. I'll tell you, I might have kind of poo-pooed on this one a little bit because of its size and stuff. It's a good light, guys. It's really robust. And let me tell you, there's one other thing that I think is really cool about the TW350. This is really cool. If you haven't seen this before, it's the first time I ever saw anything like this, especially on a handheld light. But if you get the TW350, it also comes with, so you see I pulled these out of the package, comes with a couple different tail caps. So right now I'm running this kind of deeper one, so I have to really, intentionally put my thumb in there to press that button. And this is what I prefer for carrying it in my pocket, because I didn't have any accidental, discharges, accidentally turning on the light when I didn't mean to. So you can twist that tail cap off, twist on another one. There you go. So this one's similar to the one I took off, but not as deep. It's a little bit easier to activate. All right, that would probably work pretty well on a rifle or something. This one here, pretty cool too. If you want to have a little bit more of a flange there, see that? So one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a light from the factory, having that kind of capability where you can just, whatever the mission dictates, change the tail cap, make it something that works well for you. So let's talk just real quick too, speaking of tail caps and different things like that. I think for a tactical flashlight, for a light that you're going to use in a tactical situation, what does that mean? That means you might have a threat, you could have a threat, you're trying to maybe find or identify that threat. You want a light with a momentary switch, okay? Because that's the fastest way to run it. All right, you don't want to be going around with the light on constantly, looking everywhere, looking at everything. You're lighting yourself up. The threat's going to know exactly where you are. That's where they're going to shoot. So we use the light only as much as we need to. We can shine it in a room quickly, take a look if there's somebody in there. If there's not, we move. Or we move back behind cover. Use a light. As soon as that light's off, you move. Because wherever that light was, that's where the bullets are coming, okay? So you want a momentary, that means you only have to press it in about halfway and it activates the light. You want momentary tail cap switches on pretty much all tactical flashlights. You saw I had the strobe there, haha. One of the things I don't care about some of these lights. You know, if I accidentally stutter as I'm trying to press that button and then I get accidentally a strobe, and maybe I don't want strobe. I don't like that kind of stuff. So for tail caps, or for switches, I think you want a good tail cap switch with momentary on-off. You still want the ability to turn it on permanently, okay, continuously. And for most lights, momentary, there's no click, right? You just press it in, it turns on. If you want it on all the way, just click it, and it stays on. That's the same is true with the Streamlight. If I just want to click it on, it'll stay on. That's cool. My LD22 works the same way. It's momentary, but if I click it, it stays on. Streamlight MicroStream, same thing. Momentary on-off, click it, stays on. Now this Tactician's a little bit different. Momentary on-off, but if I want it to stay on, twist the tail cap. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because the times where I need that switched on permanently, continuously, not that often. And if it's a situation where I can have the light on continuously, it's a situation where it's not a dangerous situation. Okay, so I'm either running it with momentary on-off, I'm probably doing that about 90% of the time. And then every once in a while I go, oh, I need to turn this on and leave it on, you know, as I'm working on something on the car or something. Okay, different brightness options are really cool. I don't like to get too crazy with it. If I have to like click my buttons like 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, twice, whatever it is, that's kind of irritating to me. So one thing I've always liked about the Fenix is I leave almost all my lights on by default on their brightest setting, because you never know when it's going to be needed. And then when I need it in a moment, you know, in an instant, I want full power. Okay, so boom, full power. But then if I want to dial this down, it's got a secondary switch here. I can press that and it changes the brightness. See that? So that's a nice feature to have, because there's definitely times where I want something a little bit less bright. So on this Tactician, rotate the front bezel and it dims down. Very handy, very cool. The TW350 has a really cool feature. We can turn it on and it actually has a rotating switch right here. That's low, that's high, low, and then rotate it to the 3rd position and it strobes. I think that's actually a pretty clever implementation of that. And it's actually really clever because you don't have to turn on the light and see what you're at. You can actually look at this side switch thing, this rotating bezel piece, and you can go, I want position 2, which is low, or I want to go straight to strobe. Okay, that's pretty cool. The MicroStream only has the one setting. That's fine because it's already dim anyway. Almost no weapon mounted light has strobe. A few do, but it's not really particularly useful. If anything, if it's disorienting to your attacker, it's probably also slightly disorienting to you. So let's talk about strobe. Somebody commented strobe is useful. Sean says strobe is useful. I disagree. Okay. There are maybe a handful of situations where strobe might be helpful. But again, it's kind of like what I was saying a while ago. I think there's way too many civilians carrying weapon-mounted lights for something they know nothing about, and for something that they probably will almost never need. I mean, again, I'm talking about carrying it, right? Strobe I put almost in the same category. It's one of those things that you are so unlikely to need strobe. Honestly, guys. If you got 800 lumens and you hit somebody in the face with that, you see what it does to the camera. Boom! You know what? That's blinding. Yes, that's blinding too, and it might be disorienting. But you know what? You take away their vision, it doesn't really matter. You take away their vision. That's a big thing. That's one of the big advantages of a really bright light. You hit somebody in the face with it, they're going to be, for a few seconds at least, they're going to not be able to see anything at all, and then slowly their low light vision will start to return. It actually takes about 2 minutes for your eyes to really adjust back to dark again. So once you take someone's low light vision away, it's gone, you know, at least for a fight. So you hit somebody with this in the face, that's all I care about. I think part of the reason I'm not a huge fan of strobe is the implementation of strobe. Again, I might accidentally bump my switch twice when I'm trying to just hit it once, and I get strobe when I don't want strobe. That's really irritating to me. I really just want a tail cap that gives me one bright light when I want it. In the case of the LD22, it has strobe, but after I've activated the light, I hit the secondary switch and I hold it, and then it strobes. I'm okay with that. So if you have the tool, it's fine, as long as that tool doesn't get in the way of your normal operation. And some of these other lights, I think, kind of make a mistake as far as making the switching, the sequencing of the switch so confusing and sometimes arbitrary that it takes away from your ability just to use the light in the way it's intended to be used. So, depends on what you're doing. Strobe is useful. Sean, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. I'd love for you to really tell me when strobe is useful. There's times where people say it's useful, but again, really, how useful is it? If you're in a gunfight with somebody, strobe's not going to do you one bit of good. He's got a gun. Even if he's blinded, you know what he's going to do? He's just going to fire bullets at your strobing light. As much as we like to talk about it being disorienting, it's not like getting hit with a taser. It's not like getting hit with pepper spray. As soon as, you avert your gaze away from it, it's no longer disorienting. It's disorienting when it's hitting you in the moment. And again, if you're a bad guy and somebody's hitting you with a strobe, he's just going to shoot at you. He's going to shoot at the light. And chances are that light is somewhere around you. So again, how useful is it? I don't know. All right. In a in an unarmed conflict, okay? So if you're dealing with somebody that's unruly on the street, you know what? Tell you what, Sean, let's go downtown sometime and find some drunks and that are really loud and obnoxious, and let's just hit them with strobe lights. They'll probably go, but I don't know. Anyway, again, I don't care if your option has a strobe feature, and if you like to use it, if you know how to use it, you know the situations when it's useful, more power to you. But again, I see so many of these lights that fail in making the activation of that strobe a hindrance to the other more useful functions of the light, in my opinion. Talk about beam real quick. I'm going to turn towards the garage wall there. And so this is the TW350. Now, maybe I should turn off my lights in here. That'll help a little bit. Oh, I'm really sore, guys. I did a lot more running in this 2-day kinetic combat pistol class than I expected. All right, so there's a pretty good beam from that TW350. Okay, and there's also flood, right? So we have beam light and we have flood light, right? So let's show you what that looks like. Here's my beam. That's the center focus of it. That's the brightest point. That's pretty bright. But you see, I still have a shadow off here to the side. So that's my flood. And what I like to see in a light is a light that has a good beam, not super, super narrow. Let me show you a really narrow one. So actually one of the downsides of mag light is that beam, when it's really focused, is really, really narrow. That's helpful if I'm trying to shine it 300 yards, but not really helpful up close. Fortunately, the mag light is adjustable, so I can start changing the size of that, but it starts to get a hole in that beam, and that's kind of irritating. So right there is probably optimal. And then we get kind of this secondary beam to the side there. And we get a little bit of a flood, but maybe not as much flood as I would like. Some of these other lights are a lot more effective at getting a good tight beam as well as good flood. The floodlight's important for things that are happening in the periphery, okay? So that it can catch your attention of something going off onto the side. The beam is where your attention is, okay? But you can't ignore everything else. So you want, and there's some lights that don't do very well at all, and they just give you kind of more of like a big flooding light. So, and the thing there is that if you have a light that says this is 1,000 lumens, but it's 1,000 lumens on pure flood, that's not nearly as helpful as 200 lumens with a good beam in the center. You see this is my LD22. It's got a nice little beam there, okay? It's a little bit on the tight side, but I really like this Fenix LD22. And it also has pretty decent flood light. You see the shadow from my fingers there off to the side. So I get good flood and a decent beam. Let's see. Let's show you the LD or the 2LX ProTac. That's a nice beam. That thing is hot. And they did a really nice job because you see the really nice bright center beam there, and it actually kind of fades off, you know, kind of evenly. So it's not like beam and then the rest is just all kind of the same looking floodlight. You can see how my shadow on my hand gets more and more and more and more defined the closer I get to that beam. It's because it's hard to see in the camera, but if you're looking here in person, you'd see this has a nice beam in the center, and it floods it out really in a nice tapered fashion. This actually probably has my favorite beam and mix of beam and flood. All right. Again, we already talked about the TW350. Here's the Tactician. This one is very similar to the ProTac. Nice center beam there, and turn this on all the way. So good bright beam, and again, they kind of fade that out into flood really, really nicely. It's a really good mix. So I also really, really like the Tactician. I was very impressed with that. The Valkyrie, the PL2, it's mostly just a beam, I'll be honest. And part of that is because if you look at the glass on this, it's like one big magnifying glass. And so they've done a really good job of getting a really, really, really focused beam. You don't get as much flood in this. It's some, okay, you can see it there. It's not terrible, but the thing is like it's not as balanced between beam and flood. So that, you know, this is so bright that the beam just really over washes everything else. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think there probably could be a little bit more balance there. Another thing is you want to talk about the size of a beam. Because this one's so intense, and it can be big like this, and it's still going to be useful even at probably 100 yards. But sometimes when you see beams that they start out big, well, when you get back to 100 yards or 50 feet even sometimes, that beam is already so large that it just starts to look like floodlight. You start to lose the effectiveness and the focus of that beam on the threat that you're trying to identify. So that's why, and we call it, a lot of times you'll hear the term throw of a light, okay? The throw, how is the throw? And so throw is kind of just referring to how effective is that light at getting out there at a distance, okay? And so that's something I'll do a little test when I get a light, and I'll check it out inside. Okay, that looks great. And then I'll take it outside, and I'll shine it, you know, across, you know, down the road or something, down towards, you know, my neighbors or whatever, and just see how effective it is, how far out. It's not as critical that on a handheld light you have a really good throw. I mean, if it's pretty effective out to 100 feet, that's pretty good. Chances are you're not going to really need it for much more than that. But if you're running a light on a carbine rifle, so a weapon-mounted light on a rifle, you want a really, really good throw. Because, again, you might be needing that light and shooting out a ways, potentially. So I look for lights that have, honestly, I don't think this Tactician would be quite as effective on a rifle, because I think that beam's going to be a little bit too broad once you get out there a little ways. But something like, well, this Valkyrie light here, this would do very well, because it starts out big, and it's so bright that even as that beam gets a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger going down range, it's still just very bright and very effective. Let's take a look at the TLR1. TLR1 has done a very good job for years and years. They did a really great job. You can actually see the edge of the flood out here. You can see the edge of that pretty good. There's kind of this defined edge. It's a really clean center beam and a nice clean flood. Like it's very predictable, and you know how it's going to work. The TLR1 does very well, I think, even on a rifle capacity, because that beam is focused enough, you get good throw, but again, you still have enough flood and stuff, you can see things up close. So the TLR1 is a good winner, and the HL model, the even brighter version, is pretty good. Let's take a look at the old Glock halogen here. Yeah, and honestly, the batteries in this are probably somewhat dead, but it's kind of underwhelming, isn't it? I'll tell you, in a really low light environment, it does okay. It would get the job done, but we're in the new age of LEDs, so why go back to the old technology? I like to just have it just to show you a comparison. And here's the TLR7. Again, now this is let me show this in comparison to the TLR1. You'll see how different this is. Let's see, move that over this way. There we go. Okay, so you see the beam on the TLR7, that's this one here that's moving. It starts out a little bit bigger, but it's pretty bright. And I think it's, for a pistol especially, but keep in mind this one's really intended for a pistol, whereas the TLR1 is pistol appropriate, but it's also rifle appropriate. So this one can be, the TLR7 can start out a little bit bigger, and it's probably more critical that it has good flood, and it does. It's got a decent flood. The TLR1 though, still, it's an old standard. It's pretty hard to beat. So, I mean, I think that's all the lights. Oh, and here's the MicroStream. Kind of underwhelming, right? In a really low light situation, it's usable. It's just not great. So hopefully that kind of shows you some different things about flood and beams and all that stuff. And so again, I probably wouldn't be as concerned about throw when I'm talking about a handheld light that's not really likely to be used in anything other than 50 feet and in encounters. But if you're thinking about, okay, well, hey, I love this light. I love carrying this light. It's my EDC light. I just need to get a second light and put it on my carbine. Well, just because it works for you handheld does not necessarily mean it's a good carbine light, okay, where you need a little bit more throw. So just some things to consider. And of course, a lot of it's still subjective. So people have different preferences for what they use or for the task at hand. So I'm just trying to give you enough to kind of be dangerous, to go out there as you start making decisions about some of this stuff. All right, so I've been probably going for a while, and I apologize for that. Again, all lights on our site this week only, 15% off. Use coupon code FlashTalk. So Matthew, it's not 20%, it's 15%. Can we extend the 20% off until after Father's Day? I don't know, buddy. Message our support team. We'll see what we can do. I love making hand puppets. So I know I haven't been really responding to comments here for a bit. Rule number 1, cardio. I got plenty of cardio this weekend, buddy. So the thing is it's like I can run okay, even though I'm not like the most fit. I'm not as fit as I used to be. I've got decent endurance. I can run for a while. I can step out that door and run a couple of miles, and I mean I'd be a couple of miles. It's a good challenge, right? But I could do it. But yesterday we were sprinting a lot, like full out sprint. It was a lot of movement with shooting a pistol, so that was good. It's been a while since I've been pushed to that kind of level with a sprint all the time, just 100% all the time. It was a lot of fun though. Yes, there are stream lights that can be reprogrammed, and this is one of those. They call it their tap 10, I think, programming. And you tap the light like 10 times, and it goes into some kind of programming mode, and then you do some other taps or something, and it changes the programming. And I'll tell you, I've messed with that a little bit, but the downside, like, it's cool in a way, but the downside is I didn't find, I think there was 3 programming options, and there wasn't a single one that I really liked, or that was quite ideal for me. So I kind of wish they had more programming options. There was one of them that I liked the mode of better, but it needed to be reversed. There was one programming mode where I think what it was is I just don't care for this strobe. As soon as you bump the button twice, it goes right to strobe. I don't care for that. I'd rather have to hit it 3 times or something, because I feel like it would be less likely that I would accidentally trigger strobe when I don't mean to, if it required 3 quick presses. So I was trying to change the programming to get rid of that 2-tap strobe, and I don't remember what the second program was, but I didn't care for it. And then the third programming removed the strobe feature entirely, and I'm like, cool. But it starts by default at like 15 lumens, and it works its way up. So you have to I was like, come on, just give me allow me to just turn on my light and turn it off and have it start by default on the brightest setting. That's what I would prefer, but I know it's, you can't please everybody. So, all right, guys, I'm going to let you go. It's been a while. I didn't realize how much there would be to talk about just by talking about all these different lights and batteries and beams and throw and all that kind of stuff, right? So again, 15% off this week. Use coupon code FlashTalk, all right? And you'll save 15% off any lights we sell in our store. Go check it out. We have a category in the store set up for lights. I think you'll find something there that you probably like. I'm pretty sure we have the TLR1s on the site. I know we have some of the stream lights. We got the TW350, which is a pretty cool light. I like that a lot. I think we may even have the TLR 7s on our site. I can't remember for sure, but I think we do. So go check it out. Take advantage of the sale this week. We also have some other sales, I believe, going on for Father's Day. If you're not signed up for our email list, I'd encourage you to look into that. And keep following us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, follow us on the podcast Tuesdays and Thursdays. Got some exciting stuff coming, by the way. We're going to have Jerry Michalek on the podcast next week or the week after that. It's coming up very soon here, so that's going to be really cool. I did an interview with him last year, but this will be one that we do live. And so that'll be a lot of fun to have Jerry on the program live. All right. So with that, we are going, and there's a link that Mitch or somebody posted, takes you right to our flashlights category on the site. So guys, go use that coupon code FLASHTALK. Thanks for watching today. At some point in the future, I'll do an episode where I actually show you technique of using the lights. All right, so this was more about the gear. Next time it'll be more about the technique and the tactics. I don't know that that'll be next week, but we'll do something like that in a week or 2 or 3 maybe. All right. So thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you back tomorrow with the podcast, and have a great week, guys. Oh, Diane wants to know if we'll be talking about the Mantis X. I haven't done an episode about just the Mantis X. I'll see if we can work that in sometime, all right? And Anita, the coupon code again is Flash Talk. One word. Flash, like flashlight, but instead of light, talk. Flash Talk. All right? Thanks, guys. See ya.